I remember going to a seminar, and one of the takeaways was that the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And I was like, that's bullshit. But it is so true. If somebody, and we were doing role playing games and that kind of stuff, and then people were having these incredible revelations and about life and stuff. I'm like, what's wrong with you people? But then I realized it's like they hadn't gotten to the. This was designed to help you find your purpose in life, and I'm happy to say that I have found my purpose in life. I found my purpose in life when I fell off I was working in a fast food joint at Wendy's, and I had told my employees to go change the special, because back in the day, all the Wendy's had a little marquee, and then you would put whatever special was on there, or a saying, or whatever it was. And I think we had some sort of whatever special. And I'm telling these guys to go up and you had a long tube, and you went up there, but you had to get up on a ladder and go up there. So I went up there. So they went up there, and they were screwing around. They were joking and playing, and finally I'm like so frustrated. I'm like, and I was a whole different person back then. I was like, get off of there. If you got to do something right, you do it yourself. Was my philosophy. So I went up there, and I fell. I try to grab it, and then I try to hold on to the sign. That didn't work, and I just fell from the ladder. And when I landed, I couldn't breathe. I guess I knocked some ribs out or something. But I didn't know anything about anything back then. All I knew is I was in pain and I couldn't breathe. And I landed, and I had a crowd around me. Everybody's looking at me like idiots. And I'm like, can you guys get me some help? Call 911. I can't breathe. And they're all just sitting there. And then I'm like, hurry, do something. And one of the girls that was working for me, she said, listen, there's a chiropractor right around the corner. I'll call him to see if he can see you. I'm like, whatever. And it was almost dusk. It was almost dark, 6:30 or something. This was in Miami. And I'm like, okay, whatever. So she called, and the doc said, yeah, I'll wait for you. I'm like, okay, that's weird. What kind of doctor stays extra? That's just crazy. But anyway, they give me the address. I show up, kind of, I can't breathe. And this guy, like, hey, it takes his time. Apparently he had sent all his office staff home, because it was just me and him, and he worked on me and did things, and it got to the point where I could breathe. I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. So of course, you go to a chiropractor, what's he gonna tell you? Come back. And so I did, and I kept coming back, and this guy was amazing, because he would tell me things. God, I'm gonna cry again. Every time I tell this story, I get emotional. But it was a big deal for me. And you see how I am totally off the subject, the initial subject. Anyways, so he calls me, and he says, he didn't call me. What am I talking about? I go back, and he starts working on me, and he starts doing these things with muscle testing and talking to my body. And I was like, this is nuts. How can he tell what's going on in my body? And he's explaining to me. He explained to me that my adrenal glands weren't working right, and then I would have so and so symptoms, this and this and that. I was like, wow, yes, totally. This is what's going on. Why hasn't anybody been able to do this before? So he's telling me all these things about my body, and he's like, well, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. And he adjusted me, and he turned around to write something on a chart or something. And I was looking, I was like, wow, this must be the coolest job ever. I said, and I thought I liked my job. I thought I liked what I did working in fast food. But it really, when you don't know, you don't know. when you're miserable, you're really. I was really in a bad place. I just didn't know how bad it was. I was in a marriage that was failing. I had tried everything. I had gone back to school. I had tried my hand at real estate. I had rented cars. One of my jobs was even dressing up as a dragon in this kids like amusement park that had golf. It was called Castle Park. This was in Miami, and I would dress up as a dragon and go out there. And ask me about the funny story about the dragon sometime, but I'll tell you about it. Not now, because it's bad enough that I'm off topic. Anyways, so I had tried everything and nothing really worked. We were having marital trouble. One because of money, because I wasn't making any, and she was really pulling way above her weight. I mean, like she was supporting. I mean, and we were a couple, but she was making all the money basically, and I'm just spinning my wheels here and there, and I'm really not accomplishing much. So I decided to go back to the restaurant business, and because that's one of the things I actually kind of disliked the least. I wouldn't say I enjoyed it, but I disliked it the least of the things I had done. And so I'm there, and so now I'm back at the chiropractor's office, and he's telling me all these amazing things about my body, and basically how my adrenals are burnt out from stress, and all these things going on, and everything he was telling me was right. So he's turned around and is writing stuff, and I said to myself, man, that must be the coolest job ever. I wish I could do that. And this the first time this has ever happened. I heard a voice outside of me, outside my head. This voice said, well, why don't you? And it scared the shit out of me, because number one, I didn't know where that was coming from. I like, okay, what's happening? So I kind of kept it together, and I got out of his office, and then I couldn't stop thinking about it. So the next thing I knew, the next time, I guess it was the very next business day, I went to the library and I started searching in the card catalog. That's how, if you want to learn anything about that, you had to go to the library. You didn't have the internet back then. This was like 93 maybe. So I am I'm in the card. I am searching for this, and I wrote letters. I wrote letters to chiropractic colleges, and they sent, a couple of them sent catalogs, and really I had no idea. A lot of chiropractors will say, I didn't talk to anybody. I was almost ashamed, afraid to ask this guy. I mean, he would have loved it, and he would have told me to go to Palmer, because he was a Palmer graduate. But I was afraid to tell anybody. Number one, because the way it happened, and number two, I wasn't sure. I didn't want to, maybe it turns out I really didn't want to do that. Anyway, I wrote to these schools, and they sent stuff back. But I was like, okay, I would have a map, like, oh, that's too far, not going to apply there. That's too cold. This is that. And one of the schools that I wrote called me back, and they're like, well, how about coming up for a tour? I'm like, well, okay. So it was, and I was coming from Miami, and it was a fall morning, a beautiful fall morning. And I went to the Life campus, and it was the most beautiful day, and I saw the fall colors, and I got emotional like this. And I didn't know anything else. I just knew I was in the right place. And, I wish I could say it was easy. It wasn't easy. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. And by the way, I had never really finished anything in my life, because that's kind of how everything was. It was when things got tough, I kind of gave up or decided I didn't like it and moved on. But I had finally found something that I felt that and then I did the tour, and then I heard some speakers, and I'm hearing these speakers say things that I always knew were true, but it was the first time I was ever hearing them. You know what I mean? And I was like, I'm in the right place. So, I don't even know what this talk was about. Let's be honest here. I don't even know what this talk was about. I'm going to edit this, and at some point I will get some good material from this, but I don't know what this talk was about. Wow. I'm at a blank.